Happy New Year. Good
Happy
morning,
New
good
Year.
evening. Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. This is our first show for 2025. And I can't think of a better way to kick it off than having my good friend James Lafferty come in and kind of give us kind of insight on this whole leadership profile and amazing journey that he has had over the years. He is the former CEO of Fine Hygienic Holdings. He's globally recognized and one of the most unique and diversified leaders across the globe. Career spanning multiple years, I won't say the numbers, held CEO roles at Procter& Gamble, Coca-Cola, British American Tobacco across 5 continents. Also, an Olympic coach, philanthropist, and wellness advocate. He remains committed to inspiring change, empowering teams, and transforming industries, which he's done, as we said earlier, across the globe. So, with that, my friend, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to see you, and have a wonderful 2025 to you and your loved ones.
Thank you so much for that. Well, the premise of the show is to talk about your journey, and of all the people that we've interviewed over the years, your journey is amazing. I mean, starting out as a trainer, working inside of P&G, moving from there, someone recognized you, you kept moving to CEO. Now you're retired. Now you're moving off into another sphere. So kind of give us the short version of that.
Yeah, I believe in serendipity as a concept, which is you don't know where your life's going. And there's an old joke, which is if you want to make God laugh, have a plan. And, I love sports, and all I wanted to do at 22 years old was teach mainly junior high. I love junior high kids, coach track and field. I was coaching a number of different teams and schools in that age group. And I was working with the U.S. junior national team back in the early 80s. And basically teach, coach, make $20,000 a year and be totally happy. And that's not how life played out. And sometimes life takes a turn for the worse. Sometimes it comes close to what you wanted, but not the same. And for people like me, the lucky ones, life is a lot better than you ever thought it was going to be. And I was running the wellness programs at P&G in 1984, 1985 with executives. I loved it. I was paid $5 an hour, and I had one day a brand manager change the rest of my life. We had been meeting, and I was giving him writing what we called an exercise prescription for how he needed to progress. I wrote a dietary plan, all of this, and then he says to me, hey, as I get to know you, I think you could do what I do really well, and so I think you ought to give it a shot. I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm in brand management. My response was, well, what in that world is that? I have no idea. I'm just a gym guy. And so he explained it to me. I liked what I heard, and I gave it a shot, and it took a bit of effort, but I was accepted into the marketing brand management program in the US in 85.
Mm.
And and I started there, and I was very scared and intimidated. All my coworkers had very high profile MBAs. I was a psych and physiology major undergrad, but I worked harder than anyone else. And, I found out that desire is the most important of all. I can coach anything. I can coach just about anything.
Yeah.
You want to run faster, I can help you. You want to write a business memo, I can help you. You want to look at advertising, no problem. This stuff's all teachable. But the one thing I can't teach is desire. You can't coach. It has to come from within. And I was highly motivated to be successful and to make it. And to this day, that's still how I interview people. I only interview on desire. I don't interview on the technical stuff are easy to teach. I interview people for what's in the fire in the belly.
Oh my God, that is absolutely amazing. Because we hear so much about imposter syndrome, and I can just imagine going into that. Because when I left my university and I went to work for IBM, all these big schools, people were there. I was from a small, predominantly African American school out of South Carolina, and you feel intimidated because you see these big degrees and all these big schools and all these kind of things. But my anchor was that I kept telling myself I can do this. So kind of an inner coach. Was that kind of a method that you used to?
Yeah, I look, I had big time. It's funny you talk about the HBCUs because a dear friend of mine is Edwin Moses, who's from Morehouse.
I was going to mention that.
We talked he and I have talked this many times, even recently, the imposter syndrome of kids coming out of HBCUs and how to get them over with. We've talked about intern programs, and what you do is, I had a kid and a wife. I was 22. I was terrified. I did not think I should be there. I thought they made a mistake. But then I followed the old philosophy, which is fake it till you make it.
Okay.
And I basically faked it. And suddenly at a certain point in time, you realize that you do belong. I realized I was as smart. I didn't have the polish, but I was as smart and I had the work ethic. And then I suddenly became as successful or more successful than my peers. But what you're touching on, my friend, is a huge issue. I mean, I coached the Philippine Olympic team. I mean, EJ Obiena, the pole vaulter, he's now number 2, number 3 in the world. For the biggest problem from him 5 years ago was he didn't believe he belonged in a sport that was dominated by Europeans and Americans, North Americans. He felt he wasn't, no Filipino had ever done what he was doing. And it's a huge issue for people when you're opening up doors for new segments of the population. How do we get them over the imposter syndrome?
So as you made that move and continually moved up, once you got into the business, were you able to take what you have learned from the coaching side to building out a team, following strategy, all those kinds of things? How did that impact?
Well, given that the higher you go in an organization, your organizational skills become more important. And I've seen a lot of people in my career, they were these one-person shows. They're workaholics. They crank out amazing amounts of work. And early in their career, they're successful because they outwork any problem. But over time, as you get promoted, and now you're responsible for 4 people, then 10 people, then 100 people. Yeah. I mean, look at my job in Fine. We had 4,000 people. Yeah. I can't do the work of 4,000. I mean, I'm not even remotely there. So at some point, these one-person shows, they get caught and they get fried because they never learn how to work with a team. Now, in terms of working with a team, I came into P&G, and honestly, I was better than more than half the people when I walked in because they had some incredibly piss poor leaders and managers. And I had come from this, I was coaching high risk African-American inner city kids. And my competition for their attention was drugs, crime, drug dealers, pregnancy was I lost some of my top girls was pregnancy. That was the competition. So I had to learn how to create strategies and visions that would encourage them to, hey, say no to these criminals, say no to these drug dealers that want you to be a runner, say no to getting pregnant, come and run for me and sweat every day and have me yell at you, and I'll get you a college scholarship and I'll get you out of this.
Okay.
I'll get you out of this to education. And so I learned the power of basic leadership principles like envisioning, empowering, inspiring. And when I came in, I would watch some of these guys like brand managers try to run their teams. I would be laughing to myself. Whether it's a kid running track or it's a 25-year-old MBA, they're still human beings with the same fundamental motivations. And beating the crap out of somebody and insulting them and kicking them as hard as you can all the time because they're a workaholic isn't going to get you where you need to go. So I think on certain aspects like motivating teams and that I was well prepped and came on fire because I had kids in my time in coaching, Ron. They went to prison, murder, teen pregnancies, drug overdoses. I had kids die. I mean, these were real life issues we were fighting. So when you have to overcome that, going in and selling soap, I think it's really difficult.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. Selling soap versus what I've been through. This is a piece of cake and working it from this side.
I mean, let's face it, most of the job, I mean, everybody gets all hung up on these titles, but let's deal with the reality.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people at the UN, or I tell young teachers, I give you the applause. I mean, what have I done for that? What have I done in my corporate world? Now I do external stuff to keep engaged with reality, but I've spent my whole life selling soap, toilet paper, diapers, adult diapers, butt wipes, toothpaste. I mean, this isn't even important. I mean, the last 10 years of my life, my job has been dealing with human fecal matter on a daily basis. I sell
Yeah.
diapers and toilet paper. I mean, that's all I do. I mean, you talk about a shitty job. Come on, man. This is the definition of it. So, I mean, it's not earth shattering. The teacher that's out there busting his or her butt
Yes.
to teach these kids, this is a hero. The UN, the people working in the UN trying to save lives, these are the heroes. I mean, it's a weird society that we pay executives all this money, but we don't pay the teachers right. We don't pay the policemen right. We don't pay
Yeah.
the aid workers right. It's a shame.
It's a
It's a
shame. Yeah, it's a shame. So you know what I wanted to ask you. You're preaching to the choir as you talk through what you face and your approach. Where did that come from? Did that come from upbringing as you were coming up as a kid, or because how did you pull back and pull that into the space you were in?
I don't know. I think it was probably the coaching. I started coaching. I was a decent runner. I was never great, but I was decent. I got mono my senior year when I was going to have my breakout year and maybe get some college offers and stuff. I got mono literally like the month before training started. And it was, mono puts you on your back and wipes you out. And by the time I even could get back up and really run and get fit, the season was almost over. And so my grade school, the coach quit in my grade school, and we were 17. They asked me and another friend of mine in high school, will you coach the grade school team?
Whoa.
And so we took over this team at 17. And because I was not able to run and I was out for sickness, I went every day and coached these kids, and they really sparked to us. And, we won the whole like league championship in track and field. And watching these kids grow, and which I still talk to, I think half the team, they're all in their 50s. They're all, like 55 now. We're still all friends and talk. That whole thing of helping someone, using sport as a tool to teach and helping people get better and seeing their self-confidence grow and, leveraging that self-confidence to go on and do other things in their life. I got the biggest rush out of that. And I realized that helping others was really the ticket to happiness. Happiness is not intrinsic. It's external. And I got the huge rush and I fell in love with coaching. And so then I went on to other programs, and I was coaching in the US when I eventually went to P&G, but I even went to P&G because it was a coaching culture. And I remember in the interview, some guy asked me, how do you feel about leaving coaching? I said, I'm not leaving coaching.
Yeah.
According to what you say, this is a promote from within company, and I'm going to coach like crazy. I said, it doesn't matter to me whether I'm coaching running or I'm coaching business. If I'm helping another human being realize their potential, I get the biggest rush of all time. And they said, okay, fair enough. And they hired me. And I've kept my fingers in the coaching world of athletics, but because I believe in athletics as a nation building tool. And I've lived in many countries where I could use sports like Nigeria, like Philippines, where I could help them leverage sports to build the national pride. And I love these countries. I love Nigeria. I love Philippines. I want them to be successful. And there's tons of research that shows that the Brazilian economy travels with the performance of their national football team.
Wow.
They've correlated economic growth that, what China did in 2008 in the Olympics. They invested $68 billion to put that Olympics, to put China on the world stage. And that was the springboard for literally 15 years of Chinese unprecedented growth in the economy. Wow. And they used it. So if I'm living in a place like the Philippines, I'm there to serve the country. Or when I was living in Lagos, I go to the federation. I say, look, beyond giving you money and corporate social responsibility and projects and funding things. And I built schools in Nigeria, all that. Beyond all that, personally, I will help your Olympians if you want. And they
Wow.
and they say yes. And so I would do it for free and coach. And I've seen what EJ Obiena, the pole vaulter in the Philippines, has done for the country, the national pride of seeing their flag go up in the world championships, of seeing the Philippine flag going up and hearing the Philippine anthem. And they say, believe deep, kids watch that and they say, you know what? I can go out in the world and be competitive. And that's what the country needs. It needs a belief that the future can be bright. So that's the deal. It's basically a rush. And that's the focus of my life, which is to try to help people as best I can and make this world, just a little bit of a better place. That's it.
Wow. That's amazing. You say that's it, as if it's that easy, but there was something there. You talk about someone identified you in high school at 17 because of the injury you had. You were at P&G, and someone identified you. What advice would you give to leaders as they try and coach a team? I'm going to use the parlance of coaching a team. How do you identify that person who may be quiet, but there's something there, and maybe those coaching.
It's a great question. I think you're spot on. Look, you have to look at the intangibles and what's coachable versus what's not coachable. That's the real secret. And I think there are things that are easily coachable, like communication skills. If you tell me this guy doesn't know how to write a memo,
okay,
give him to me for 90 days. I'll have him writing like Edgar Allan Poe on day 90. If you tell me, oh, this guy doesn't know how to speak to an audience, this is cake stuff.
Yeah.
It takes 3 months to train somebody to be an outstanding public speaker. It's not, this is all easy. How to do an ad or how to look at advertising. This is easy. The hard stuff is desire. Do they just not give up? Do they show this perseverance? And I was always a kid that never gave up.
Yeah.
I think everybody saw that. And they say, like, the guy just he's not that talented in maybe this running or that, but he doesn't quit. I give an example in high school. My first 2 years of high school, you had to do PE class. And they did the pull-up test. And you had to do pull-ups and number of pull-ups, and there was so many to get an A and all this stuff. So the freshman year, I do it, and I do like 4 or 5. I'm respectable because there was a ton of kids that couldn't do one, and then some really good, the best athletes in the school that can do like 10 or 11. But what did I do between year 1 and year 2? I trained every day doing pull-ups. In year 2, I did 24 and set the school record. Whoa. So I went from like nothing to the school. And coaches saw that. They say, okay, you know what? He isn't the naturally strongest guy in the school. He doesn't train. He can do 4. But the guy trained. He was doing pull-ups when everybody else was partying. He was doing pull-ups when everybody was trying to go to the dance. Yeah. He was doing pull-ups, and then he sets the school record. And so I look at desire. When I was in BAT, and this is a good story in desire. HR called me from London. They said, hey, we're doing demographic analysis of some of the organizations, and we came across a statistic that we don't understand. Can you explain it? I said, okay. And they said 16% of your organization are single mothers. It's uncanny. It's like we've never even seen a number that high.
Yeah.
Not even close. So what's going on? I said, well, I can tell you now it's not like an overt strategy, but let me think about it for a second. And I thought about it and I said, you know why? Because I interview everybody on desire. That's how I interview people. I look at desire. Yeah. And single moms are superhumans. They're not normal. They're superhumans. They have to be the mom, the dad, the coach, everything. The homework helper, the cook, the cleaner, the going to the PTA. They have to do everything, and they have nobody to count on. They have no spouse to count on. They're unbelievable. And just today I interviewed a woman, a single mom of 5. Her husband died he was a heavy drinker. He died of cirrhosis of the liver at 38. We hired her. We just hired her like 2 hours ago to be in CARE, the company I'm the chairman of. I just can't stop because these people are exceptional. And so that's the explanation. It's not that we say we want to hire single moms, but single moms that really commit to, they're going to really take care of their kids and are going to make this thing work. They're truly exceptional human beings. And with that, you can train around all the other issues. And so that's a big one, is that. The second is passion. Again, the ancient Greeks used to ask people, the only question we ask is, did he have passion at the funerals? And do they have passion? And that those intangible skill sets that are not teachable. And probably the third one would be the moral compass, the backbone. Do these people, are they driven to do the right thing? Are they going to step on everybody to get what they want? Do they have a certain value system in play? That also is a good moral compass. If you find those things, and if you're prepared to invest in these people and you're prepared to train them, they're going to be the amazing, exceptional people. And that's what I was. I was a gym instructor, but I had more desire than anybody. I was passionate as hell. And I've always had a good moral compass on my head. I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I feel like whenever I've been really confronted, 99.99% of the time I go the way of righteousness. And so that's the formula for a great person. And you can derive that in an interview, or you can sit and ask, banal questions like, tell me about a time when you had to work with a group of people and come up with
Thank you. You nailed it. You nailed it. You know what? Let me give the audience some background of this. So James and I met. We were flying into Pakistan. I don't know what it was, Karachi or Lahore, and we were on the same flight. And I didn't realize it. We got there, and the next morning I see him there. So he was in the opening keynote, mesmerized the audience. So when you talked about public speaking, storytelling, the way you told a story since you've been on the session today was what he did. And people were, normally in a session, people are on their phones. And James started talking, and people put those phones down and started listening. And he kind of walked us through a synopsis of what he's talking about now. And it mesmerized the entire audience. And that's how we became friends, because it was absolutely amazing. Because you go to these sessions and you got people getting up talking, and they're tone deaf, and they're just talking about something nobody really cares or gives a shit. And you were able to nail that in talking through that desire, passion in an interview, and trying to hire someone to work for your team. So that coaching space is needed today. It's needed today because you have so many leaders that are trying to lead based on something what they read or a prior leader or whatever it is, but your approach is totally different.
Yeah, and look, distinctiveness is important. I mean, if you take that event, I mean, that was they laid it up for me, because I tell people all the time when I teach public speaking, you remember in college you had professors that you hated their class. Every time before that, you're like, oh my God, I can't wait for this to be over. The guy bored you. Everyone is going to sleep. You're struggling to keep up. He doesn't care. And then you had these other professors that you loved their class. Like, you were sad when the semester was over. I said, what was the difference? The first guy is like, hey, I'm a PhD. I'm smarter than all of you. You should be honored to hear any word come out of my mouth. You should sit there and take notes. It's your honor to just listen to me talk. Versus the second guy says, like in Shakespeare, you say, everyone's an actor and all the world's a stage. I have to entertain and hold my audience. And they made things fun. They learned how to teach and all that. And I followed a government official in that event in Karachi.
Yeah.
Who I remember the guy's like, look, I'm a minister and I'm hot shit. And you all just better listen to me because I'm a minister. And all day long, my butt gets kissed. I love it. And I want all of you to kiss. And so the guy's just talking at the audience, boring as can be. I mean, dead, boring, because he has no motivation to invest in holding an audience, because they're supposed to hold onto him because everyone's telling him how great he is and that he's a super minister. And, so by the time I got up there, the audience was dead. I mean, all I had to do was, at least be engaging and, a couple good jokes. And you had everybody in the palm of your hand because they're dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're dying for stuff. And, the same thing that I used to see that in some of the companies I worked in, everybody was so politically correct. Nobody would say shit. Nobody would say the F word. Nobody would say anything. Everything was just all glazed. When, if I was teaching English, the first word I would teach was shit. It's the first word I would teach anyone. If you know that word, you're already like 30% fluent because it means so many things. And, so I would be the one, everybody else would be like, the bland, I got to pick my words carefully. I can't say anything controversial. And I would say, look, I speak like a normal person. If I offended you, I apologize in advance, but I'm going to let a few shit bombs drop. I might even drop a few F bombs. And if I upset you, you know what? You can write to HR, do what you want. But, I'm warning you up front if you're offended, if you're really going to freak out. But, spare me, because I say it in a training and you go crazy. But then you sit in a movie with Eddie Murphy where every other word is F. And you laugh the whole time. Where's the offense at? I mean, at least be consistent. If you're going to throw this like gauntlet on me of, if you say this word, I'm going to go crazy, then live it in your life.
Yeah. Well,
don't play this game. So, part of it is it being authentic. I mean, I think what we lack in this world is authenticity. I mean, I'm not a big, super fan of Elon Musk, but I'll give him credit for one thing. The guy's authentic.
Yeah.
You get what you get. And he's not afraid to say F you.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to like it. You say, oh, he's a beast or whatever, but you have to step back. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
The guy is the richest man in the world, and he didn't have anything. He was an immigrant from South Africa coming to the U.S. in the late 90s. I mean, he built all this himself. Give the guy credit. He didn't inherit anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give him some credit. So, authenticity really works. And more leaders need to embrace that so that people know what they're getting, not some programmed mannequin.
Oh, I love that. So if you look back on your career, what would you say was the most influential mentor in your life or career?
It's easy. There were two back-to-back in P&G, two legends. One just passed away in the last few months. Herbert Schmitz was the man who founded Central and Eastern Europe. He created it. He built it. And he was the perfect guy at the right time to take the fall of communism, all these countries going, all the way from Russia south down to the Hungarys and Romanias and Moldovas, and build a business from zero. Today it's now billions, multiple billions of dollars. And then his cohort and peer, the great Fuad Karaydam, who was the founder of the Middle Eastern business in P&G, and it was my boss when I ran Levant. And these men, they defend. These are the old-fashioned leaders.
Yeah.
They defend their people. They defended me. They believed in me. When the political police would come after me on something, they defended me. They protected me. They believed in their people. They took bullets for their people. They fought for their people. They taught old-fashioned values. They never did that. Fuad was famous when, there was an issue once in P&G in West Africa where somebody wanted bribes on the Pringles shipments. And, some government official wanted bribes. And Fuad said, absolutely not. And they said, yeah, but if we ship it in, it rots in the port. We lose, $100,000 on the shipment. He said, ship it in. And they shipped it in, and the guy puts his hand out for the money, and they don't pay it. And all the Pringles rots in the port, and it started to stink, and there was rats. And eventually the guy comes and is like, please get rid of this thing, get rid of it. And we got rid of it. And then Fuad said, ship some more. We shipped some more. The guy didn't ask for a bribe.
Okay.
Go ahead and clear it. And I mean, later on, I remember people were going there, and every other company was having to be asked for bribes. And they would ask P&G, how the hell are you clearing everything without bribes? And he said, yeah, because we taught a lesson that we're never going to pay it.
There we go.
You can ask, but I'm never going to pay it. Mm-hmm. And, I saw that. I was there. The principle-based management, the sticking to the right thing, none of this weak, limp, blowing the breeze, which way is the wind blowing? I'm going to move this way and that way.
Yeah.
None of this crap. These guys, I always wanted to be like them. And
Mm.
they were bosses in a very critical time. I was very blessed.
Yeah.
At critical times when you're forming your character and your values, you get this boss. And I had two of them back to back, and they are my heroes. And I owe so much to them. And that's why I always try to pay tribute to both of them.
Wow.
When I can, because, and when I do writings and things, because these men, nobody makes it alone. And these are some great men who gave so much to me.
Yeah. You announced last year, latter part of last year, that you were going to step away. Walk us through that story, how you came to the realization that, it's time. And we were talking about this before we went live. Walk us through that story, because I thought that was so compelling, because lots of times we don't know when to quit. I don't want to say quit, when to readjust.
Yeah, good question, my friend. Look, I was never going to retire like and go fishing.
Yeah.
That's just not me. I mean, I do love my work. I get value out of it, but I don't have to be a CEO of a company. I can also sit on boards and I can consult with other companies. I love speaking to companies. I do a lot of that. So it was never like I'm going to stop dead cold. But the job in question was being on the payroll of a company as their CEO, and the pressure that comes with being the CEO, especially of a company going IPO. And, that you have to make every month and every number of every month, because every investor's, it was just incredible. I mean, the amount of, so life, we all don't understand this. We all think it's never going to happen to us, but life can change in a split second, my friend. And my life changed on September 3, because I'm at home, I'm preparing to go to work. I'm having breakfast. I've got a 3-year-old daughter, almost 3-year-old daughter. I go and I pick her up, and look, I'm fit. I'm in, I'm competing in sports and doing all this stuff. I pick her up and I feel a heaviness in my chest that's not muscular, and I feel a little tingling on my arm. And look, I'm a physiologist. I'm not completely stupid. And I say, this is kind of, this is a classic symptom of a cardiac event. I put her down and I turned to my wife and I said, you know what? I got some chest pain and I'm feeling a little weird. I don't think I should mess around this. I'm over 60. You can't play Superman forever kind of thing. I said, I'll just go to the hospital and get it checked. She's like, okay, let me know and I'll come right over if I have to, all that. And so I get in the car, I go over there, I walk into the emergency room. I said, look, I'm having some symptoms. I think I could be having a cardiac event. They hooked me up in the EKG and sirens go off. Oh. And they're like, you are in the middle of a myocardial infarction, major, lay down, and, they're throwing me into a bed, a whole bit. And, they got me on all kinds of blood thinners and they're doing all kinds of different stuff. And I talked with the doctor and I said, maybe we should do an angiogram. And we agreed. I hadn't had one in like 30 years. I said, let's do an angiogram. And they do the angiogram and they come back and they say, look, you got some big blockages there. Now you're fit, you can get through it, but we got to stent all these things up. And, so you got multiple 90% blocks. So they put the stents in, and I'm in, in the room later on, recovery and all that stuff. And the doctor comes to see me and he says something to me that changed everything from that second forward. He said to me, it was a good call that you pushed me to do an angiogram. And he said, I admit I wasn't leaning that way, but your push was the right thing. And he said, I need to be honest with you. You shouldn't be here. You should be dead.
Ooh.
With 3 blocks like that and your life and your cortisol levels at this level and your blood work like this, I'm sorry. I don't want to scare you, but you shouldn't be here. This is the stress. It's majorly a stress issue. And I knew that. I mean, I was really, I'm feeling it. I was working out every day trying to get the stress out, but it can overwhelm you. And the second he said that, Ron, everything, I felt all this energy like leave my body. And it was like, you need to stop everything right now. You got young kids. You
Yeah.
need to get your act together. And I literally went forward in a day or two later and said, I want to retire. And they were like, whoa, 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 you know, we need warning. So I gave 60 days. They wanted more. I gave 60 days. I couldn't wait to go. It's not because I don't love my team or I don't
Yeah.
love the
Yeah.
company. You know, these are wonderful people that work for me and fine, you know, it's a wonderful team. But you don't, you know, when you're dead, you got to put things in perspective. I mean, if I'm dead, I can't care about anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got a daughter that I need to walk up the aisle and she's 3. You know, I
Yeah.
got to be here. So I gave it all up. And I was telling a friend today, I met with a friend here in Dubai who's also like between job CEO, late 50s. I'm early 60s. He's late 50s. And I told him, he said, are you job hunting? I said, I'm not looking at anything. I haven't even applied.
Yeah.
I don't want, I don't even have any desire to be a CEO right now. So board chair, that's one thing. I've got a couple of those, and sitting on boards, fine. Consulting in and out, they cut you a check. You know,
Yeah.
you can help them. That's fine. You know, speech, that's wonderful. But that gun to my head, make the quarter, you know, make the month. Right now, I may maybe in 6 months, 12 months, I don't know. But right now, I don't want it. And so I'm just lucky, and I feel very blessed that I'm alive to be able to have this discussion, because some people, I've had friends, you know, a lot of things impacted me this year, Ron. Also, 2 of my best friends in life, in work, former bosses, died back to back from cancers. And one in July and one in August, and that way before their time. And these were guys that took care of themselves. They did everything right. And then my one friend, this Belgian guy named Gert Broos, one of the most wonderful human beings. You know, we've been friends for 35 years. He was my boss. He's got back pain. He's biking like crazy. He's got back pain. And he goes to the ortho to do an MRI, and the guy does an MRI, and he says, hey, maybe you guys need to go back to Belgium. He's originally from Belgium, and this was in Morocco. He said, maybe you need to go back to Belgium. I see stuff. I'm not an expert. And he sufficiently scared them. They jumped on a plane. They went back to Belgium. They do the MRI again. And the back pain was bone cancer that had come from the liver cancer and the gallbladder cancer. So he was stage 4. And they said, get your affairs in order. You got max 12 months. He died by the 11th month. You know, and he was a general manager, CEO in Coke, a CEO in Procter. He had, you know, lived wisely. He had his whole life in front of him in retirement, loving his life. And he's dead at 65, you know, dead of a massive cancer that came out of nowhere. And this is a guy that never smoked, never did anything, exercised diligently, ate very well, very healthy. He played the cards right, and it didn't play out. And so what happened was all this stuff in my brain kind of comes. I said, I buried friends that were way too young. And then I had my own heart attack. And I say, if I don't wake up,
Yeah,
I'm the dumbest guy. I'm the stupidest on the planet. And I said, you know what? I'm leaving as soon as possible. I'm out of this, and stop worrying about every bit of money. And you need always a paycheck. And, you know, I've always stressed about all this stuff, and, you know, the kids and college, and you got to, if you're dead, you can't help anybody. And so that was what led to it.
That's absolutely amazing. And I'm so glad you shared that, because at a certain point in time, we all are going to get to that point. And how do you determine? I remember I owned a convenience store years ago in New Jersey, and I asked one of the older salespeople, I said, how do you know when it's time? I mean, this is a stressful business. We're open 24 hours a day. He says, trust me, you'll know if you listen. If you don't listen, you're going to keep on, and all of a sudden things are going to happen. And I never forgot that. So I'm always kind of in tune to what's happening. Is it moving the right way? How can I tweak it? All those kinds of things. And I think specifically for these so-called leaders of teams, and we go back to the context of the CEO series, is that people that manage people, you have to be aware that everyone is going through something. You talked about the single mothers, and the HR called you, and why do you have a higher propensity of people? in that so-called DNA. But each one of those people came in because they had the, as you talked through, the desire and all those kinds of things. So I think for leaders today, they may have been sold on another package of leadership, but what you just gave us was a master class of how a leader should coach and develop teams.
No, thank you. Thank you.
So when you think about what's next for you, I noticed this morning, and we talked about this earlier. You're on the board of a company now. So now it's kind of cooling out board speeches and all those kind of things. And
Yeah, there's there I've got some interesting other sticks in the fire that I can't really talk about at this
okay,
point, but they would be more in public service and government, that I'm looking at and talking about. At this point, if I can help, a country or my own country, in fact, if I can be of help and serve society and make a difference. I mean, if I can, I'm in a position now where I can take those kind of roles and not worry about, the ramifications, especially financially, of those kind of decisions. If I can, in the twilight of my career, so to speak, if I can really serve in different ways, and that can be from being a college professor again to, taking a government position that I can help, I can help society. That's what I'm looking at. This would be really kind of shake up roles. So that's why I say I'm not stepping back. I'm just reloading
okay,
and to accelerate into different stuff. But I don't think, being the CEO of company X selling the X consumer good, that may never happen again. That it
yeah,
may, it may not. It may or may not. I never say no, and I think it's
yeah.
foolish to say no. But that you have different phases in your life, and I think I can do other things. Be less obsessed with salary, compensation, stock options, stock grants, and more into what's my real impact on society.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I mean, so in talking to you and but knowing you for years, but it's amazing how you're so well grounded, which I find is just amazing to be so well grounded. You've so-called reached the mountaintop, but you're still grounded because lots of times people like this, they get there and they're in a totally different cloud, and you were able to stay grounded. Is there a secret to that? How do you stay grounded and you've achieved success that people are striving for, and you've reached it, and you're still grounded from the trainer?
You never look. I think a couple things. If you never forget where you came from, and if
Mm,
you own up to your mistakes, and you own up to the errors in your life, and you're transparent about it, you don't try to, to recreate the narrative and rewrite history. You always stay grounded. Let's take me as an example. I got my girlfriend pregnant in college. That was my first wife. That son is now 40 years old. This was in 85. In
okay.
85, the world was a different place. A pregnant girl on a college campus was a big deal. And, I had to do everything I could to raise this kid. And I was in school and full-time working all these jobs. And one of the jobs I had, and my buddy, his dad had a construction company, and they were contracted by the city of Cincinnati to put in some new sewer lines. And this was amazing. It was $10 an hour in 85. I mean,
Yeah.
that's big money. I mean, I was making 5 coaching classes and stuff. So 10 was mind blowing. But there's a big but on that. The backhoe digs a hole through the pavement on a street at 3:00 in the morning, and you crack open the sewer lines to start to lay the new pipe, and there's sewage everywhere, and you got to jump down in there,
Mm,
and you got to shovel, and you got to work the stuff and guide the new. So you've got a crane lowering a section of sewer line. You got to guide that in. I did that.
mm.
I
For ten
stood,
thousand hours.
yeah, I mean, I stood in human feces up to my hips. This is what you guys. I don't forget that. I don't. I don't go and hide, that she got pregnant. We got married. We had a wonderful marriage. She's an incredible woman. I'll always support her. I take the, we didn't run off and do a shotgun wedding and try to cover. We got married later when everything was stable, and I took all the grief for it, and so, look, I own up. I don't have any dark secrets. Everybody knows my stuff. And it keeps you humble. You say, look, I'm not some unbelievable. I was a college kid studying, and I got, I had a baby in college, and I had to dig ditches. And I lived when I left Proctor and I was going to Coke, P&G offered up this program where you could work with like an outplacement firm, and I didn't really need it, but I said, that it's free. It's part of the retiring executive pack. So I write my CV and I've sent it out. I've got on the CV that I'm a track coach, and I had all this stuff on the CV that I was a track coach, and I have my own company selling fitness equipment, all this stuff. And this lady calls me up, this like counselor, and she's like, you got to take all this off. You got to just stick to the P&G. And I said, absolutely not. I said, that's who I am. Yeah. I'm just a track coach. I said, what you're trying to do is transform me into a Ivy League MBA. That's not what I am. Yeah. I'm not this polished Harvard MBA. I'm not. Don't try to make me into what I'm not. Mm-hmm. This is who I am. And there are people that love the down-to-earth, authentic background. And there are other people that say, I want the slick Ivy League MBA. Yeah. Okay, get your slick Ivy League. Go for it. Yeah. That's not me. And so I've embraced my differences as that's who I am. And, you take it or leave it. But what I don't do is I see all these people hiding things to try to create a narrative. Make your narrative your real narrative and make it special. Stop trying to. This is what makes people unhappy, what causes so much stress. Yeah. People are so worried they're going to find out. Stop. Stop. Wow. And be who you are. And I've even said this recently in a LinkedIn article. I said, be who you are. And then I had a few people say to me, I'm pissed because I've been who I am and I didn't get the promotion. I said, look, this is a much more complex.
Yeah, than that.
What you're basically advocating is that you should lie and manipulate your narrative to build your brand.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like telling a brand the way to build your business is to run false advertising. Absolutely not. You should develop the product or take the product you have and make it special, but don't lie to people. Yeah. As a way to build I said, I've never seen lying work out. So, that's that's and there are people that, you lose friends, you lose people along the way. There's people who don't like you or whatever. Okay. You can't make everyone like you.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I wanted to do a shout out for some about the comments that's coming in here. I think this is Adrian. She says, desire and motivation should never be underestimated. Shout out to the South Carolina HBCUs, the Benedict College here. Peter Piccinini, was a former guest, who's always here. He says, awesome. Wow. On the comments as you're talking about, Muhammad says that this is so inspiring. It so much resonates with my beliefs. Would love to learn from your experiences. Gerald Martin Garcia says that it's been too long. Where in the world are you now? I would love to have a beer and coffee and catch up, that kind of thing. And Muhammad also says that principle-based management, let the Pringles rot. Don't pay the bribes to the post guys. Amen to James Lovett. Faisal said the best advice I learned from Jim is be kind. So thank you so much for being a guest. As we close out, what advice would you like to leave the audience? You've gone to the mountaintop. I'm going to use Martin Luther King. You've gone to the mountaintop, and now you're kind of transitioning into a new phase. What would you like to leave the people that listen in today? What is the final thought that you'd like to leave to them?
The biggest is that, I see a lack of risk taking in the world today. People love comfort. And they love being comfortable, and that's living in a city that you love and that you know everybody, and staying in a job because it's comfortable, it's predictable, and everything's predictable, but it's boring, and you don't hit your potential. My biggest advice to people is you've got to embrace discomfort. You have to make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And when you're comfortable, you have to know you got to go. And that means you take the new job in the new city. You move countries, you learn another language, you get on that plane, and I mean, I know what they're going through. I mean, when I took jobs and went to Morocco, I was shaking on the plane the whole way of fright.
Yeah.
But then you conquer it. And that's when happiness comes, is when you overcoming obstacles. And so my advice is just take the risks in your life, whether that be it on your job or on starting a small business or what. Do it, these things. It's not a dress rehearsal. Yesterday, that 40-year-old son of mine was a baby. Yesterday, my friend. Today, he's 40 with 3 kids, my 3 grandkids. It went like this. I was always the youngest guy in the room, and now I'm suddenly the oldest guy in the room. Get busy living or get busy dying. Get on with it and take those risks. That would be my advice.
James, thank you so much for being a guest. And I wanted to kick off the show for 2025. And I wanted someone that would come in and kind of set the tone for what we're trying to do here. And you, my friend, did it. So I'm in New York now. I'll be back in Dubai by end of month. And we need to set some time to have dinner and catch up the way that we normally do when I'm there. So for sure. My man, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
Okay, wonderful. hang on as we close out, because I wanted to speak to you about something. Hang on as we close out.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.